is George Demaree, and I'm here again with Money Matters, that your money matters. Let me start by sharing what I heard today on Good Morning America from a guy who was over the health services in the state of Maine, because Maine has done a better job with the virus, with COVID, than any other state. And they said, well, why? And he said, because if it's predictable, it's preventable. Well, that hit me, that if it's predictable, it's preventable. So things that you can predict and things that you can plan for, then you can react to those in a very positive way to get the results that you need. The same can be said about your finances and how to handle your money. Let me share some other statistics that I think may be of interest. There are 138 million multicultural, they call it multicultural people in America. And what they're really saying is people who are not white in America. It's 130 million. That's a little less than 38% of our total population. There's about 45 to 47 million black people or people who list themselves as African American. That's about 14% of our population. But let me share this with you. This year, in 2020, for the first time, folks who are 18 and under, that segment of our population, there are more people that are multicultural than there are white. So this is where our country is going, and this is the reason that I believe, and not only me, a number of people believe, that some political people want to slow this down, but they can't slow it down. This is what's happening in our community. And by 2044, the majority of this country will be made up of minorities. Let me also share this as it relates to that. Spending power. Black people have in this country about $1.5 trillion in spending power. Now, what's that mean? That doesn't mean that we have 1.5 trillion in some bank account. Not at all. It means that we have 1.5 trillion in spending power. Spending power also includes credit worthiness. For an example, your limits on your credit cards is a part of that spending power. So it's important to know the difference, but there is power there. There is power there. The total amount of spending power for minorities in this country is right at about $4 trillion. Let me also share this about us and black people as it relates to our money. We're spenders, and marketers know that. Let me give you a statistic that I discovered today. Black people are 42% more likely to react to buy something that they see from an ad on a mobile device than any other ethnicity. Do you think that marketers who are marketing to you don't realize that? That we as a people are more spenders, we as a people are more consumers than we are savers? That 97% of black people in America have a smartphone. So marketers are sending you information, sending you ads, because they know that you're more likely to buy on an impulse than any other ethnicity. So remember what Money Matters does, what we try to do. We want to promote financial literacy, and I believe, I'm going to spend a little time on financial literacy. I believe it should be taught in schools. I believe if they're teaching math, science, history, and English, that financial literacy should be a requirement as well on how to handle your money, because most people don't know how to do it. The next thing we do at Money Matters is that, again, we explore business and education opportunities. Let me share a couple of those. Let me share one of those today. Do you realize that you can get online training free if you look for it? Guess how I found it? I looked for it. If you Google and you go to online courses, free online courses, you'll discover that there are 10 and 12-week courses that you can sign up for free. Harvard, one of the premier educational institutions in this country, offers free online courses. They offer free online courses in computer science, video game development, website development, and even accounting and finance and how to create financial statements. So, though we're in this pandemic, how can you turn this lemon into lemonade? How can you make yourself better on the other end of the pandemic than you are today? The next thing we do at Money Matters is we want to champion strategic thinking. Remember, we become what we think about. If we think we're going to be broke, trust me, we're going to be broke. But if we think there's ways that we can get out of this, that we can be better moving forward, I'm telling you, your thought process will dictate what your future is. And what you do today will dictate what that looks like a month from now, or 2 months from now, or this time next year. So why not take an online course? Why not change how you're thinking? We talk about that often in Money Matters. We also talk about credit worthiness. Well, what do you do to improve your credit? Well, one way, and there's many, but one way is your credit utilization. And that's how much of your approved credit that you're using. One way you can do it is you can ask for higher limits, because you want to keep that percentage, that credit utilization number, under 30%. But if you want a high number in your credit rating, you want to keep it under 10. So for an example, if you have $1,000 that you have in available credit, you want to not borrow any more than 10% of that in order to help your credit rating. But today, let me tell you what we're going to spend more time on. We're going to spend more time on debt reduction. There's a movement out that my wife says she'd heard about it, and people at our church, many of you have already probably been exposed to it, and it's called D-Free, debt-free. And a minister, a Dr. DeForest Soaries, who's a minister of the First Baptist Church of Lincoln Gardens in New Jersey, started this movement. Let me tell you what happened to him. He says that debt is a form of slavery. And when he did this, and when he used that to illustrate that, he got a lot of pushback. But in a lot of ways, debt is a form of slavery. It puts shackles on what you can do. It can put shackles on what you can buy. It puts shackles on what you can give back to your children to set some kind of legacy. Consumer debt in this country is over $3 trillion. And there's a lot of ways that you can look to get through it. And it has nothing to do with ethnicity. It's people in debt, no matter what they look like, their religious background, the amount of money they make. Some of the people make the most money have owe the most money. So this is what motivated him to do it as it relates to his church. they were having problems with donations and wanted to know what he could do to solve that particular problem. But then he noticed in his parking lot that there were a number of late model luxury cars, and that people were dressed nice, they were spending money, but yet wasn't donating money. So he came to the conclusion that folks just didn't have it. Folks were overspending. They didn't understand how to handle their money. He had a family in particular where it was a husband and a wife, and they both had good jobs, and they both lived in a nice place, and they had nice cars, but one of the breadwinners got downsized. And when that breadwinner saw that, he realized that he was living, though he was making money, he was actually living paycheck to paycheck. That he was subsidizing what he wanted to do in his lifestyle using credit cards. And you should never subsidize your lifestyle using credit cards. You should only use credit cards as a necessity. Don't use credit cards to satisfy wants. So he looks at it and he says there are three categories or three things that caused it. One is debt. The next is delinquencies. And the final thing is deficit. And he said the D-free movement started with a comprehensive strategy anchored by the wisdom of God's word. And isn't it amazing that if you look and you understand God's word, there's a solution there? That there are solutions to most things right in the Bible, even for your financial situations. There are solutions there. And he said in order to get there, the first thing you had to do is getting started. Now, no matter what the problem, no matter what the addiction, no matter what goal that you're trying to achieve, the most important part of that is getting started, taking that first step, understanding your current situation. We talked a couple of weeks ago about a guy by the name of Admiral Stockdale, who was an Air Force officer during the Vietnam War, and when he was shot down in prison and how he survived that. And remember what he said, that he understood the brutal reality of his current situation, but yet he had faith that he can get out. So the first thing is understanding the reality of your situation and to be able to change your attitude and your thinking. So let's talk about debt. Debt threatens your ability to develop meaningful wealth. It causes you to have high interest credit cards. And it really affects folks in the lower and middle income than most any other demographic. The next is delinquencies. We've talked about delinquencies. Late payments lower your credit scores. Not only does it lower your credit scores, because of that, there's a ripple effect. So it hurts you when you're trying to get a mortgage, to buy a home. Late fees and penalties cost tons of money. Do whatever you can do to reduce delinquencies. And the third D is deficit. It's called deficit spending. Don't spend what you don't have. And for a second time, please don't use credit cards to subsidize your lifestyle. It reminds me of a friend of mine when we talk about how we think about our money and how black people, as a rule, think about money a little different than other ethnicities. They just do. There was a survey in the late 50s and 60s that targeted the black consumer. I mean, that long ago. And they realized that this is what we want. We will buy name brand stuff quicker than almost any other ethnicity. For some reason, it made us feel better. We're going to explore that a little more before we get out of here today. But it also made me think of a good friend of mine from years ago. It was one of my clients, one of my customers during my radio days. His name was David Snow. David Snow was a Jewish guy, really good guy. He and I grew to be the best of friends. Just a great guy. We played golf often. And a number of years ago, I remember us playing at Seneca Golf Course, and his son calls him, 8-year-old son. And he says, and it was his birthday the next day. And this is how the conversation went. The son was asking, what stock is he going to get for his birthday this year? I was amazed by that conversation. Here's an 8-year-old kid asking his dad before his birthday, not about the next G.I. Joe with a Kung Fu grip, not about those designer Nike shoes, but about what stock, what company he was going to invest in for his birthday. Those children in their 30s today. And I bet you that when they went to college, they had a lot of money saved that will reduce their need to borrow money to go to college. That's a mindset. That's a different mindset. David Snow, that good friend of mine, passed away a few years ago with pancreatic cancer. We spent a lot of good days on the golf course. So, brings me to another story, also during my radio days. The owner of Clear Channel, his name was Larry Mays. And Larry Mays is a big Texan, conservative Texan for that matter. And he invites us to his home in Texas for a big meeting with all the managers. And when I noticed the cars he was driving, I was amazed by that because they were old and somewhat dilapidated. But yet this man was worth millions and eventually almost $1 billion. The original, one of the original founders of Clear Channel Communications. So, what do we do? How do we get started? The first is getting control. How do you get control? And that's developing a spending plan. Having, again, a reflection of your current situation. Taking action. Changing habits. Changing lifestyle. Again, if you're going to set goals, also set timelines. The next is how to get ahead. This is having a focus on achieving those goals. What are you doing? Are you saving money? Have you invested in real estate? We talked about real estate last week. Investing in real estate and owning your home is one of the primary ways of building wealth in this country. Look for ways to do it. Talk to a financial advisor. Last week we talked to Raymond Smith at Park Community Credit Union, but there are other financial institutions, many represented here at St. Stephen Baptist Church, that you can develop a relationship with a person that can help you to get there. And finally, once you get there, and we're going to spend more time on this in weeks to come, always give back. Always look and say, who can I help? When you make it, you never made it alone. Somebody helped you. So if somebody helped you, you make sure that when you do, and you have the resources to do it, that you share your resources and you help back. Dr. Soros talked about the reasons people spend money and why they've put themselves in debt. It's pretty incredible. A lot of it I agree with. One of the ways he called it compensatory spending. And what he meant by that is some people spend to compensate for things they don't get. He felt that if you don't get the kind of love, you don't get the kind of recognition that you think you deserve, that you try to spend your way into getting that kind of recognition, to get the kind of positive reinforcement that you need, and you think that spending your money will get you there. And I'm telling you, it won't. Remember, your money can buy a house, but your money will not create a home. Think about it before you do it. The next kind of spending that I thought was interesting was conspicuous spending. And the word conspicuous, if you look it up in the dictionary, it just means wanting to be seen, wanting to stand out. And some people spend their money just for that reason. Now think about it. That we will spend, many of us, I'm guilty. I have been guilty. Many of us will spend $60 on a golf shirt because it's got a logo on it, when a $25 golf shirt is just as good. And does the $60 golf shirt, is the quality over 100% better than the $25 golf shirt, and sometimes cheaper. Some people spend money just what he calls is to keep up with the Joneses. Now, remember what your money does and how to build money. There was a time, I don't mind sharing it, where I've spent too much on a suit. And looking back on it, during years ago, 20 or so years ago, every derby time, I'd have to have a new suit. I won't even tell you how much I spent on it. It's embarrassing to let you know. But if I had spent a fraction of that, took the balance of that and decided to put it in my 401k, put it in a savings account, buy stock, where would that be today? Where would that investment be today compared to where it is now? And let me tell you where those suits are. They're so far in the back of my closet, I can't even wear them anymore. That's what I mean about making good decisions on spending your money. The third way that people spend their money, according to Dr. Soros, is that he calls it confused spending. We talked a little bit about that last week, maybe a couple of weeks ago. That's buying on emotion. That's spontaneous buying. That's buying on the whim. That's buying without thinking. And remember last week, a couple of weeks ago, I said before you make a major purchase that you didn't plan for, and you got your credit card in your hand, or even your checkbook, even you got the cash to do it, go home and sleep on it. Give it 24 hours. And I'll bet you more times than not, you will discover that you didn't really need it. It's a thing that marketers have done to make you spend your money. I think is incredible, and a lot of us do what I'm about to say, that we'll spend $4.50 or sometimes $5 or more on a cup of coffee that you can get for $1 all day long. And is that Starbucks coffee that much better? Is it really? Is it 300% better as far as you paying money for it? Remember, saving small amounts of money, money grows exponentially, can help you in a long-term game. So, what do you do? What do you do? Understand where you are financially. Take a financial snapshot. List your income. Gather all your bills. Well, let me take it from the top. Gather your pay stubs from the last month. Get your annual income tax returns and your property taxes. Get your savings account investment statements. If you have a 401k, your 401k statement. Your monthly contributions to those. Pull out your insurance premiums, your auto insurance, your home insurance, health, group, life. And remember, don't fall in love with a certain company as it relates to your insurances. It's a good idea that you bid them out at least every other year. You'll discover that you can save some money if you do that. Pull out your loan statements, your mortgage statements, your installment loans, your credit cards. What are your company's benefits? And last, but as important as all, your household expenses, food, utilities, maintenance. Put them all in a place, take a financial snapshot, and to see where you are when you start to develop this plan. We're only on the first part of this. We're going to talk even further on how you can improve that financial situation once you get all the information in front of you. Remember, at St. Stephen Baptist Church, we want all of you guys to be as prosperous as you can. And when you come, don't forget about your church. And finally today, I want to finish with a pledge. And this is the pledge, and I think it's pretty profound. Apply God's strategy for managing your money. Well, what do you mean? I mean, apply God. Don't value who you are based on your possessions. Don't let your possessions dictate what you do. Always remember to help people when you have an opportunity. Number 2, keep your expenses below your income. Live below your income. Live, if when all possible. It's not possible for everybody, but at all possible, live off of 70% of your income. If you can live off 70% of your income, you can always save money and put you in a position to leave money for your children. Number 3, pay your bills on time. Pay your bills. Dr. Surrey's talked about him owing the IRS. And because he hadn't paid his taxes. He hadn't paid his bills on time. So a letter comes in from the IRS, and he sits there and he doesn't open it. How many times have you gotten a bill back in the days when you couldn't pay a bill that you left it there and didn't open it? He didn't. A month later, he gets another bill from the IRS. This time he opens it, and this is what they said. They said, not only do you owe us the principal of what you owe us, but now you owe us penalties. And those penalties go up depending on when you're going to pay us. And now he didn't have to write him a check. They started garnishments of his income. So now he couldn't pay his bills. He's getting his check garnished just because he wouldn't pay his bills on time. If you can't pay a bill, and I've said this a number of times, I'm going to say it again, be proactive, don't hide, they're not going away. Number 4, invest in assets that grow in value. Invest in assets that grow in value. I'm about to say something that car dealers won't like, but the worst asset that a person can buy is a new car. Wow. Because what would you pay $30,000 for? And then 10 seconds later, try to sell it back and could only get $26,000 for it. It is the biggest depreciating asset out there. Got to have a car, but be smart in how you do it. And finally, and just as important, please continue to give to your church. Let me tell you what happened to his church. Once he helped his congregation to manage their money better, to understand where they were spending their money, to write things down, to budget, the donations of his church went up. Well, that's this week's Money Manners program. I hope you learned something today. I try to look for information that can help you no matter where you are or what position you are as it relates to your finances. And remember, God loves you, and so do I. Have a good day.